Okay, now it should work. Okay, and we're live. Thank gosh, it works. Now I just gotta spam some peeps with it and we're good. All right, chat. Can y'all see me? We're good. We're good.
It's going.
All right. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Hey, thanks for having me on. Big fan since you actually helped me get into Age of Sigmar.
Oh,
Just by I can tell you the whole story real quick. So growing up, I played fantasy with my brother. My brother's 6 years older than me, so I started playing fourth edition when I was 9, just because he played it and he needed somebody to play with. And so playing Warhammer up until probably 1999, 2000, and then I kind of just stopped. And then 2017, we're like, let's play Warhammer again. And we go to the store and can't find Warhammer anywhere. We find Age of Sigmar, and we're just not too sure about it. And so I'm curious as to what happened to my game that I grew up playing. And your lore videos help me like bridge the gap between what happened to Warhammer to turn into Age of Sigmar. And so because I never, a lot of people are upset. I didn't live through the end times. It was something I got educated about through videos that you created. And I'm like, oh, so there was more curiosity. So I don't have that angst towards Age of Sigmar that I used to have.
oh, that's awesome, man. I appreciate that.
Mm.
Yeah, that's I've actually bumped into people for the first time at the because I hang out a lot of weeks over at the Citadel, which is that big old store in Grapevine.
Yeah. Yep.
And I actually had a few people that were like, hey, that were either old fantasy fans or people that I guess just played Total War that had seen stuff. So I'm always super happy to hear when people get into the hobby.
Yeah.
Um,
I appreciate your take because you're one of the few Total War players who like you didn't pigeonhole yourself into like continuing to have to hate Age of Sigmar even when it's good
yeah,
now
well,
because the game the game
yeah,
is
it's like
good.
don't get me wrong, I was on the hate train for like a good oh gosh, probably like 2 years or maybe a year. Like most of first edition, I was not a fan,
Yeah,
but
I lucked out and got into it like when KO first came out. That's when that was there had been a GHB by then, and so it was. And I played up until then, and then second edition just made the game where it's like you can just see it growing. Like we're going to talk about tournaments we did this weekend,
yeah.
and the same tournament that I just competed in this weekend, it was sold out as of last year. Compared to last year, there was only 20 people, and this year it sold out. So it's just definitely growing. It's cool to be there, kind of at the ground floor
Mhm.
with our YouTube channel. But yeah, it's definitely a fun hobby. And the game, if you've tried it before, it might be your time to give it another go because it's they've got a lot better.
Oh yeah, and we'll get into tourney play here in a little bit. I'm gonna give folks like a couple minutes to kind of flood in because it takes usually a bit for everyone to get notifications and get off their butts and get on. But uh yeah, I stayed out of Age of Sigmar pretty heavily until second edition dropped.
Hmm.
So like when they released Night Haunts, I saw Night Haunts and I was like, oh, I gotta get in on that action.
They're calling
Like,
me, yeah, they're fun army.
because I always liked because we had some Night Haunts in fantasy. You know, we had Banshees and we had Cairn Wraiths and
Yeah.
Hex Wraiths. Those were the only three ghosts in the game, which were my favorite of the Vampire Count units. Oh, we had Spirit Host too, but like I love those units in Vampire Counts. And then they come out and they're like, well, what if we had a whole roster that was just spooks?
Just goes, yeah.
And it was like, oh my lord.
Yeah.
Hey everybody in
I'm really
chat.
surprised that you're not playing Seraphon. Lore Master
Well,
Associate.
so I did play Seraphon in first edition,
Oh.
and I really liked them. But I came back in second, and the first two games I played were with Seraphon, and I
Mhm.
played them, and I was like, oh, this book hasn't aged well.
Oh,
Like this book is really struggling. Which I found out a little later, that I found out a little later that there are ways to run Seraphon competitively,
yeah, definitely.
but it's a very strict set of builds.
Yeah.
Like I was someone that I really liked to run like Temple Guard and
Oh, yeah.
Saurus and stuff. You can't do that anymore.
No, it's
There's just way too many mortal wounds in the game, and they just die instantly.
yeah,
Because
precisely.
in first edition, mortal wounds were super rare.
Yep. And
Um,
you get Temple Guard with a like a 2-up re-rolling save.
Yeah. They were like what the Mortek Guard do now, except for the
Mhm.
Mortek Guard are infinitely better at it. But um um chat, y'all can see me, right? I can see hellos.
It's on me, man, mostly. I can see you in the
Yeah, oh yeah,
bottom.
that's fine. Yeah, I swear there was a way where it would switch based on who was talking, but I don't use this function very often. I'm more of a uh Discord person, but whatever, it's fine. They see me all the time. You're new. So,
I know.
uh,
I also Italian Spartacus, and who else do I like? Party Elite. I like his too. And I actually bought a gaming computer because I was lying to myself about Total War for a while. It's like, I mean, it's not that cool looking. It's just these orange guys shooting white lines at these guys. But man, it's everything a Warhammer kid could want in a game. And I find I'm actually, this is a controversial statement. I didn't like the last patch that sped up load times
really?
because
You didn't
that's
want the?
when I used to paint. I would
Oh,
I would play Mortal Empires. I would click next turn, and then I would start painting. And my painting has just the
I
number of models I've cranked out has really gotten less and less because I play Total War while I paint, and now I can't.
yeah. I've actually had a similar issue. I would work on. I would write scripts or read between turns, but I can't do that anymore because it's too fast.
Yeah.
But okay, y'all can't see. Okay, cool. Well,
I've only beaten the game because I love that you guys do a lot of competitive player versus player stuff. But I used to be addicted to like online games, and so I can't play against people online because I'll get lost in that. And
yeah, I feel that.
I need to be able to stop and leave at a drop of a hat. But I've only beaten the game once, but I've started probably thousands of campaigns. I love the beginning, and
Yeah.
that's fun.
I would say that's a lot of people's experience. Like you start it because just when you get into the late game, you start to hit that point where you're just like, okay, I'm just hitting end turn so that I can just hurry up and take like the last two things I need to win.
Yeah.
Like the real exciting part is, that beginning when you're building up an empire and stuff. But yeah, it is a very fun, solid game that has really kept Warhammer at the surface, I think, of the cultural world here for a while. It's weird how long Total War has been out. Warhammer has been out now, while still being like really top of the food chain for strategy games. And we're not even to the third game yet. We still have a whole nother installment to go.
Okay,
Uh,
so you're not just the lore master of Warhammer. You're also a lore master for Total War. Now, how did it started out as a mod? The
oh,
Warhammer stuff. How did
so the long story the long story short is that Total War traditionally was a purely historical series, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's all they did was history. Now, they did have a very vibrant modding culture
Mm-hmm.
with, Medieval 2. And Medieval 2 was probably the most famous for mods, because Medieval 2 actually allowed you to mod the campaign map, which later installments did not. So for Medieval 2, not only would you have a Lord of the Rings mod that would give you Lord of the Rings units, but because you could import your own assets, you could make your own units with unique visuals and effects, and then you could also change the campaign map so it was like a one-to-one copy of Middle Earth or Warhammer Fantasy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that is where those got really popular. But I think the guys over at Creative Assembly, some of them, big strategy gamers, I think if you're into strategy games and you live in England, Warhammer is kind of like an unavoidable thing. It's like you just know about it over there. At least here in the U.S., Warhammer was, especially back then, a little bit more of a minor culture compared to what it is now, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just because of that, Creative Assembly started. They really wanted to do Warhammer, but I don't think they felt like their technology was there yet until after. I want to say after Shogun 2 is when they really started looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And once they started working on Warhammer, it took a while. It took a long time. Like the first time we actually heard about it was they released, I want to say on their 10th anniversary, they released a book that was called the Total War Anthology, and there was a single paragraph that talked about them being excited to work on Warhammer, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, what is this?" Because the only Total War game I played outside of Warhammer was Shogun 2, which I put thousands of hours into Shogun 2, because it's just a beautiful, flawless game. It's genuinely flawless. And played that so much. And I remember growing up, I always would be like, man, if they would make this for Warhammer, it would just be like the best thing in the universe. And then it happened, and it was. Though it was slow going at first. I mean, they were really conservative with the first game. But then it sold a lot of copies. Millions of copies, I think, or hundreds of thousands at least, and got off the ground significantly to the point where they were like, "Oh, okay, we can actually push this really hard."
Yeah, I definitely went and bought a computer to play Total War Warhammer 2. And obviously the first one as well. I was like, well, I have to play it. It looks too cool.
But with that, let's actually talk about the tournaments.
All right.
So if you'd like to go first,
Oh,
what was yours, a 2 day or a 1 day?
2 days, a grand tournament.
Oh,
So,
a GT. Okay.
yeah, GC. So you do 3 rounds the first day and 2 rounds the second day. And so I introduce myself. My name is Jack. I'm from a YouTube channel called Rerolling Ones. We do Age of Sigmar battle reports, and I guess I would say we're the biggest Age of Sigmar battle report channel who only does Age of Sigmar stuff. And we kind of started out. We just hit 2 years. Matter of fact, 2 years ago, and it was just Doug from Two Plus Tough, who you've been on his channel before. He's been on yours, I believe. He does a lot of lore stuff, and I met him because he lives around me locally. I met him, and he was like, "Hey, and a couple other guys, and one of them, Shu. He was like, "Hey, maybe we should do a channel as well because it's easier when you realize, like." Meeting Doug, like, oh, anybody can kind of do this. Not saying that he doesn't do a great job, but it's like, it doesn't take, you just need a
This
camera.
is an everyman job.
Yeah. And he already had the name Rerolling Ones, which is a really good name because in Age of Sigmar and a lot of tabletop games, one is bad and you have abilities that let you reroll ones. And we don't do a lot of super competitive stuff because just to me, that's not very fun to watch.
Mm.
And we also do I did stand up for 6 years. Shu's a funny guy, Brent. And so we kind of organically started doing sketches before.
I was gonna say, I honestly think the sketches are my favorite part of
Yeah.
the. Whenever y'all put out a new video, I always watch the sketch first
Yeah, yeah.
And then after it's over, I'll pause and go about my day, and then that evening I'll watch the actual battle report.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I put a lot more like thought and stuff into sketches, and I have like a book and like a notebook and like, oh, I want to do this. And I think during our first year we did a lot more like green screen and stuff like that. And we kind of get Shu has 4 kids. I have 2 kids, and Brent has a girlfriend now. So it's just we try to get together and have fun. That's what we try to get across with our battle reports. We're having fun playing the game.
Yeah, because I'll tell you right now. I'll tell you right now, shamelessly, that one of the items on my bucket list is to get on a rerolling one of the opening skits. I'll have to fly up there at some point.
Well, we got to brainstorm, come up with a sketch. Anyway, that being said, the Rerolling Ones is not a competitive channel, but out of all the 3 guys, I am the competitive player. Like, what do you guys use ITC down there?
Not the tournament I was at this weekend. I am officially rejoining the Texas Masters League, which is the state league. So they might for the GTs, but I haven't heard anything on it yet.
Yeah, so I've gotten best overall at a GT, second a couple times. Like I got 22nd last year ITC out of there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. So I'm like, it's not all sketches, I'm decent at the game as well. But so in this tournament, my first time taking Timber Style. Last year I played Stormcasts all year, shoot casts with Anvils of the Helmhammer, which lets you shoot in the hero phase and shoot in the shooting phase. For those you not familiar with Age of Sigmar, and so that is really devastating, getting extra
that's nasty
shots at people. And in the mechanic where there is a chance to double turn somebody, so that's 4 rounds of shooting, and that was pretty brutal. But now I'm leaving that behind. I kind of, because it's not fun if you're just sitting there getting shot for 4 rounds.
Oh yeah.
Very unfun experience. And I'm like, you know what? I want a more interactive experience, because a lot of times I'm going through these tournaments, I'm meeting people who enjoy the content I put out, and I want to give them a good experience, not like
you don't want them just disliking every video out of spite.
Go ahead, pick up your models, but I'm glad you like the channel. No, so this I took Tempest Eye, which is still a lot of shooting. And so I went 4-1 the first round. I played against who did I play first round? I know I played Seraphon second round, but
and also to anyone in chat, if y'all have any questions, just feel free to shoot it off, whether you're on YouTube or Twitch, and I'll pick them up.
Yeah.
But anyway, continue.
So first round played against Ogre Maw Tribes, which is a very like get in your face, punch you, and kill you army. And
were they going Beast Claw or Gutbusters?
Yes, all Beast Claw, pretty much. And but the Realmscape feature, which this was kind of controversial, the TO picked some Realmscape features that were very like, it really changed the outcome of the game for some people. Like the first round was there's no rend for anybody.
Whoa!
Yeah,
that's kind of a lot.
yeah, and especially for like Night Haunt, you paid not to get rended.
Yeah, like that would suck for Night Haunt.
And so these guys, he has Stonehorns, which are these gigantic beasts with ogres on top of them, and they have -2 rend, or or for if you play 40k, 2 AP or whatever, and do 4 damage each. And I'm like, oh, I ignore your rend, so I'm just making these like I'm sorry, dude.
Dude, if you were across the table from Petrifex, why even play the game?
That's the problem I had. I'm like, they're already one of the top armies in the game.
It's like, sorry, listen, I don't know the TO, and I'm sure he's a nice guy, but as a TO, that is a stupid feature to pick. That's a terrible decision. I'm sorry.
I was talking to him. I was like, I don't agree with the first or the second one, but I'll get back to the game. So
okay.
So he goes first. I make sure I have a lot of stuff in front, chaff. So all my important stuff, like all my heavy shooters and stuff like that, are behind the wall. And he goes first, punches through all my chaff. I counter him and shoot a bunch of his stuff, and then I get the dreaded double turn. Which if they would have stayed in turn order, he would have had a really good chance, but I got another round of heavy shooting. Got to take a bunch of stuff off. So
Uh,
feeling good. It was a good game, and a guy named Peter. Every time I play him, it's really close. Next round, you talking about Seraphon? How you did one of the builds that
yeah, it's like the only build that works to my knowledge is
yeah,
Shadow Strike.
yeah, yes, it was double Shadow Strike, and so it's like getting into the weeds with like details about Age of Sigmar, especially if you don't play. But so Seraphon was one of the first books that came out.
Yeah, they're
And
old now.
yes, they're
Old.
very old, and some of their rules don't really align with the game anymore. Like the game has established this is what you can do and this is what you can't do, but Seraphon has these old rules that are a little wacky now because they don't fit in this new system. And so they have Lord Master Sotek mentioned, mortal wounds are brutal. Mortal wounds you don't really get a save. It's just no armor, goes right through and it just hits you.
Yeah.
And they have these pterodactyl riders, pretty much, who in a certain battalion can come down just outside of 3. And usually when you set up a model, they can't move, but because they have old rules, they can move after being set up. So they set down, and every time these models go over a unit, they can pick and say they're dropping their
Dropping
bomb.
rocks. Drop
They're
rocks.
dropping the rocks on them, and they can do. Anyway, he has 21 of these pterodactyls,
Oh my
and each
god.
pterodactyl rolls a dice, and on a 4-up, they do D3 mortal wounds.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's nothing I could do about it.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so all my key pieces that how I chaffed up that first game, like, oh, you can't get to me.
Yeah, no, he's just like, yeah, whatever.
That's cool. I'm just gonna fly over you, kill your 2 key centerpieces, and yeah. And so that was one of the things. Like I was like, oh man, and I tell these people like it's okay if you don't have fun playing Age of Sigmar because it can be very unfun at times if you're playing a competitive build and you're not in that
Oh
proper
yeah.
mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But it can also be fun, like if you watch Rerolling Ones. Simple, a little plug there. We try to have sometimes curated games where I'm not going to bring the nastiest stuff to a list. That's we try to mostly it's about the jokes and stuff. But and so that game was a loss, and I was like, all right, I'm obviously I don't think I'm not going to win it, but I'm still going to do my best. In the next round, I played Zinch, which is like they just got their new book, and Power Creep is real. I used to
Yeah, we'll
he's
talk
like,
about.
no, it's not real. It's not.
We'll,
It's
we'll
not
have to
real.
have like a separate chat for Zinch here in a little bit. So real quick, we do have a couple questions that came in.
Okay.
So Anthony, I will say, yeah, if you haven't been able to collect models yet, or you want to be able to test out models before you play with them, then Tabletop Simulator is the best way to do it. Tabletop Simulator will let you build a Fire Slayer army, play through it, learn how to play the game without having to invest in models or paint yet, and then once you know what you want to get, you can go buy it.
That's a great idea.
And then Giga Slayer asks for both of us. He says, how do you think it would be a good idea for tournaments to not allow double turns?
Well, that'd be interesting because you're changing the game at that point. And this is like a conversation a lot of people have. Because
I would say it's probably the biggest hot topic
yeah, the
in
biggest
AOS.
yeah, I agree about. Do you have double turns? Because it is an interesting mechanic, but it's the easiest way to get feel bads because it can make a game that shouldn't be close, or it can make a game that wasn't going to be close not close at not at all. And so I think what I would like to see is the first turn. Like if you finish first, you just get +1.
Yeah, instead of the guarantee pick.
Yeah, the guarantee getting to go first. I'd like to see that change to maybe you just get a bonus, or you break ties, kind of like now. The role if you turn priority, if you just went, or if change it so if you just went, you have to beat it by 2 instead of tie it in, or beaten by
Be about yeah. Because I will know. I was actually really interested in your thoughts on that because for you, your exposure is mostly just AOS, right?
Yeah. I've played 40K, and it's just like I only have enough time to get really obsessed with one thing at a time.
Yeah, it's hard to do both unless you're like just rolling in money.
Yeah.
But and like paying someone to paint your models for you because you're not gonna have time to paint both. But
Yeah.
but because coming from a fantasy background, I loathe double turns, and that's just because in fantasy it didn't exist. Just
Yeah.
like in 40k, it doesn't exist. It's a weird experiment that is exclusive to Age of Sigmar. And I kind of still think it is an experiment because I don't think first edition AOS really had competitive play.
Agreed.
I think it's purely second edition that's allowed for actual competitive play. But so like I know for me personally, I hate it. Like
Hmm.
I think the double turn's really dumb because it takes it from being there's nothing in my opinion. There's very little strategic about a double turn because it is nearly impossible to predict when it's going to happen. And if it does happen, it is for most armies, it can become impossible to win the game.
Yeah, you can. It can be impossible, like you said, to bounce back from like. Uh, but I can say this: I've gotten better because getting it's not an accident that people you see this top people at the same people at the top of the tournament every time, and preparing or setting yourself up in case you do get number double turn that it won't be
Oh
devastating.
yeah, and that's I think for
You
me that's what elevated this last tournament. I placed really really well,
Mhm.
but I know games before that I had been struggling because I had had a fantasy mindset when approaching Age of Sigmar, and that I wasn't taking the double turn into consideration. There
Yeah.
would be games where I would, with my night haunts, I would get up in my opponent's face, and then they would get the double turn, and I would just get slapped. You
Hmm.
know, and it's like no, I had to specifically design my build so that it's centered around giving me massive movement buffs and stuff like that. That way, I could just stay 20 inches away. Like I do not get within 20 inches of my opponent unless I have a guaranteed faction army wide charge.
Hmm.
So is it like you're guaranteed to lose if your opponent gets a double turn? No, but there are times when it gets it can really. I'll put it this way: I have never gotten a double turn and won a game and thought to myself, like, oh, if I didn't get that, like, I felt really good about it. I guess is
Yeah.
the way. Like, I don't feel like I outplayed my opponent because I got the double turn on them.
Yeah.
Usually it goes from being like we're pretty neck and neck to all of a sudden, oh, okay, well I could just swing twice with everything and now you're dead. Or
Mhm.
okay, now I just double capped objectives, so now I'm way ahead on objective points.
And I think you can also tell that this game is like a living game. It's changing, it's growing. You
It's
can
still
see
a baby.
first, the
It's
second.
still a baby.
Yeah, and like with the GHBs every year, you're getting new rules. It's not like here's an addition. All right, we're gonna have FAQ. Never, and then next edition comes out. You're like, wait, because I remember, can I dip my toe back into Warhammer? Like
Yeah,
they,
fantasy was not a living system.
yeah, well,
Like they would release a book, and if it was broken, well, too fucking bad. It's broken. Get
exactly.
used to it.
And like sometimes you put on your tinfoil hat and think like, why didn't they fix that faster? Like they just, for instance, Slanesh used to be the big bad for about 6 months, 7 months, and they just kind of, nerfed him. They, toned him down a little bit, just a little bit, not anything crazy. But sometimes you want to like, why did they do that in 2 weeks?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we all
Yeah, yeah.
know why, but um, so we got another question here for you this time. Dom asks, "What armies do you play for
So,
AOS?"
okay, so competitively, I'm playing Cities of Sigmar right now. Is what I'm going with it for 2020. But as far as armies I own, like I like to say, oh, it's a studio army, but for the channel. But I have Khorne, Slanesh, Stormcast, KO, Flesh Eater Courts. Um, let's see. Yeah, and like the Cities of Sigmar thing really messed me up because it's a sandbox I get lost in. I'm like, oh, I can do this. Like I ordered 30 Iron Drakes today just because we were talking about a list, and I was like, ooh, that is better than what I took. And so now I'm like, all right. So and also if you're looking to get in the game, eBay is your friend. You can
Yeah, well, especially if you're playing a Warhammer Fantasy army.
Yeah.
that has AOS rules, then you can get a really cheap army on eBay.
It used to be, oh, you missed out the good times though. You missed like 2017, 2018 when everybody hated the game and
Oh
people were
yeah, you could buy like an
burning their
entire
army.
Skaven army or Dwarf army or whatever for like $200 for like an entire army.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, and that's so I have a ton of stuff, but yeah, I have a lot. A lot. It's just too much, and it's like trying
So
to.
you would say you're maining cities right now.
My
Okay.
main is cities, but I got some side chicks. I like to.
Hey, I mean when fantasy was big before I had to sell a lot of my collection during my college years,
Mhm.
but like I had my fingers in a lot of honeypots for Warhammer Fantasy. You know, it's like you just sort of would pick up a ton of models randomly.
But
Um,
I'm guessing with like my bottom army. I guess if we're keeping the the metaphors going, my where my heart lies is Slanesh. Like
okay,
so, and that was like or the originally, Juan Diaz Demonettes. I uh, I bought a bunch of those, and yeah, that's where I. But it's kind of one of those things where when I was so excited when they came out, but it was also like, oh, I don't want to be not saying that guy because if you play Slanesh at the time you were that guy, but I'm like, oh, I don't. I'd rather play not the top tier thing. I'd rather
yeah,
play.
there's and you know I'm the same as you. I know they're like do you know Turin?
Yeah,
Like Turin, love him to death. Turin is a very competitive minded person. Like Turin is not having fun unless it's competitive.
hmm
And it's like hardcore. So like Turin is not the kind of guy that you would see like in 40k. I would say lore wise, his favorite army is Death Guard, but because Death Guard are apparently really trash right now, he doesn't play them.
What's the thing
Uh,
everybody Iron Hands? Is that what everybody's playing right now?
yeah, I have to go look on his YouTube channel, but because it's been a bit since me and him have talked about 40k. But like, you know, like he's the kind of person that I think if he came over to Age of Sigmar, he'd be like, "What's the optimal thing I can do
Yeah,
that I can at least put up with?" Because you know, everyone has their own armies that they hate. You know, it's like you would never catch me dead playing elves. But
yeah. You're not interested in the Realm Lords coming out?
no, God no, they're even worse than the high elves.
Oh
It's
man.
like they took my beautiful high elves and they gave them all these goofy ass plume feathers. I'm like, what is that?
Oh my god.
I don't want elven Roman legionnaires. Thank you very much.
And it's one of those things like I also want to enter like I don't want to yuck somebody's yum. If that's the way you like to play, I'm not gonna but that's just for me. I like showing up to a tournament and like this is what I thought of. What do you think?
Well, I get
Like,
like I don't know about you, but I just get a lot more satisfaction of if I take a
yeah.
suboptimal builder army and I still manage to win, then
Oh
I feel
yeah.
like hot shit.
Yeah. When I was wondering with Stormcast when you listen to the pundits, for AOS, there's a shout out to like not saying these guys they cover competitive AOS, Honest Wargamer, they do great jobs, but when you see where they have Stormcast ranked, and then when you win a tournament with them, you kind of feel you do.
Yeah,
That's the
I was gonna ask you about that a little later, but I guess we can talk about it now. In that I've seen some of the recent tier lists and stuff. Is that Stormcast are being placed really low,
yeah,
which surprised me because they have so much variety in their builds.
and that's well, they're also ranked really low because it's based off results. And Stormcast is one of the easiest armies to get. There's tons of models. You can find them, online. They're the
So
first.
it's probably skewed doing to being like a
Yeah,
new person army.
exactly. A lot of
Yeah,
people show up. That's their first army, and and they go up to a tournament and they get trounced.
yeah, because
And
that's how you learn. You get the
yeah,
crap beat out of you. When it comes to strategy, that's how you learn.
mhm.
Um, yeah, it's interesting because I was even talking about that at the recent tournament. Like, I don't even think we had. Let me check the results page, but I don't even think we had a Stormcast player, or if we did, they placed like really low. But someone was like, "Oh no, they're just bad," and I was like, "I don't think that's the case, man.
Yeah,
Like, they have way too much customization options
yeah.
because they
And
can. The only thing they can't field is hordes." But other than that, they literally have access to every mechanic in the game.
and one of the I think they're one of the answers to how we were talking about Zinch is like number one with a bullet right now. The change host, teleporting, shooting, and one thing that Stormcast can do is they can hide half their units off the board in the Celestial Realm. So when Zinch, teleports in, does their firing thing, you can then counter what they did, just delete their stuff, and now you're good.
Yeah, so let's continue on your journey through the tournament. You're leading us into your third Zinch
Oh yeah,
match.
yeah. Zinch match, teammate of mine, which is another thing when you get into the tournament play. There's like I didn't realize it. They asked me to join. It was just like it's called Victoria's Secret. It's our a club, and it's one of the cool. I made some really good friends. But playing a fellow club member, he is kind of like me, where he's playing Zinch, but is his recipe. He had Bellacore, Manicore, a bunch of stuff as Kairos, and it's not the Flamers and shoot you. And it was a tough game, but he put the a Palisade, which is an endless spell which you can't shoot through, and my whole army shooting, and I was able to dispel it because I rolled a 12, and you can't with Kairos you can change one of the dice, and he was going to change one of them to a 1, but because I rolled a 12, no matter what, I dispelled it, and I was able to kill all his important stuff that was behind there. And he was like, and then he was like, you got me, and we just played it out. But yeah,
Nice, dude.
that was the day one, and of course, before the day before, we usually like a pre GT partying and karaoke. That's one of the best parts. Just going hanging out with friends, going to bars, and meeting new people. And so 2-1 first day. We go out, drink, and have fun, and get to meet the Portland guys, the Vancouver people. It's kind of nice being in Seattle because you're just we're all the way in the corner, but we have some people surrounding us. And next day, played against Corn, which Corn is people would put them in the middle, the lower middle, but they have decent summoning, and and you kill stuff, and stuff's gonna come back. So played Hannah, who's a local Corn player. She's really good. She's won a couple tournaments, and was able to just overwhelmingly shoot her off stuff and just play the objective game, get points, and that was a major victory there. And the final game was against Adam and Fire Slayers, which Fire Slayers, I would say the 3 top tier armies to me right now are Fire Slayers, Bone Reapers, and Zinch.
Fire Slayers, really?
That's interesting. Fire Slayers are very, very good. It's a certain build, like we were saying earlier, these builds where you have 3 units of Orc Hearthguard and Lords of the Lodge, because they just have that 4-up shrug, 2 wounds each. And if they touch you, they're doing mortal wounds. And Jeremy V, who's he got second at LVO. He did it with Fire Slayers. He was a number 1 ITC player. Fire Slayers. It's a very good army. Huh. You just have to paint the same model like 80 times. And so I played Fire Slayers. He wasn't playing that list though. And so the thing that shocked me is. He was like, we set up because I'm 10 drops. I'm not going to decide who's going first.
Yeah.
We set up, and he was like, all right, you can go first. And it shocked me. I was like, oh, because I'm like, I don't like playing gotcha hammer. I explain what everything does. Like, this is fast. If I use this guy's ability on these guys, they can run and charge. Or this spell gives them +2 to run and +2 to charge. Mm-hmm. I'm really fast, and I shoot a lot. And he was like, go first. And so it was one of those things where how you design the blueprint in your head how it should happen, but it never happens.
Yeah, right.
It's just sell something, or you don't roll this proper run distance or whatever. You don't have to command points, but it went off. The blueprint went off. The plan went off. Everything happened. I got the turn 1, all the 20, moved across the board with my evocators, and I killed half his army.
Dude.
And he just is this his face turned white. He was pale. and I was like, and it was kind of just, but it's still a game of objectives, and I was just killing stuff, and it helped him that he got the double turn.
Right.
He got the double turn, and this was shifting objectives. So there's 3 different objectives. You roll the dice to see which objective is worth 3 points. and it kept landing on the one objective he had control of.
Oh
And
yeah,
so,
I hate shifting objectives so much.
I tabled him, but it was a tied, and so it was a minor win instead of a major win. So
Okay,
I ended up getting sixth place. But I think if I would have been able to get fourth or fifth if I got that major instead of the minor.
fair enough. And so for y'all's tournament, did they was it purely a generalship score, or did they also do painting and sportsmanship?
Well, okay. So for the general award, you get the most prize support,
Right.
and that's the number one. But there's also best overall as well.
Okay. So yeah.
And so there are scores. There is best painted and best overall, which combines general and best painted. And so, like the guy who won best general, he definitely didn't have the best painted army. It was fine, you know.
It's
But it's
fine.
not really
It's
any.
fine.
But like for instance, it takes me a while to paint. Like my Stormcast are done. I played them for almost 2 years. People were even saying, "Dude, what are you gonna move on?" I'm like, "Are you gonna paint my stuff?" Because it
Yeah.
takes me a while to paint. And so my army is the based 3 colors. I had the minimum. I wasn't proud of it. I wasn't proud of
Awesome.
it. Like here, check this out. See, there's a gyrocopter. There's 3 colors on there.
My gosh.
But there's stuff
Well,
like
it's like that. That looks like it literally just came out of the box with those pieces of plastic pre-colored that way.
hey, there's primer on there. It's not best painted yet, right? And so, yeah, for instance, like I had a bunch of horse guys, and my horses are painted, but the guys sitting on top look like this, just primed.
Gotcha. That's great.
And so, but and I feel bad about it now because I was so used to have a painted army, and the game just looks better when it's 2 painted army clashing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all of a sudden you're getting tabled by, you know, some stuff that's not done yet. You're like, come on, at least paint your army, dude, if you're gonna beat me.
Dude, I am awful about painting. Like I enjoy it, but I have to be in the right mindset to paint.
Mm.
Otherwise, I just sit there and stare at it. I'm like, I'm gonna do something else. But but with Night Haunts, it's like you just spray paint everything white, and you're like, they're ghosts. Just
Do you have
But
any models around you? I want to see.
yeah, hold on, they're in my. Okay, I do have some that are done, but give me a second.
I am painting right now the Soul Scream Bridge, which is an endless spell came out of the Forbidden Power set. And
Yeah.
what this thing does, it lets you set up. You pretty much teleporting some units. This game's all about movement. And so the list I built today has 30 Iron Drakes, which are dwarves, and they're very slow. But if I can get this endless spell off, they can now move 24 inches. And so now I can shoot pretty much whatever I want to shoot at. And they're getting 2 shots each, hitting on in Tempest Eye if they're next to my buffing vehicles. They're hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, -1 rend, 60 shots. And you can like hit on 2s, reroll 1. So it's like, it's not fun.
That's pretty shooty.
Yeah, I'm trying to,
So the only stuff I've finished so far, and I'll get just a couple guys on screen here. Here, let me move this so that people watching can see it. There we go. So this is focus camera.
It's on me.
There, nope.
There we go.
Camera.
There we go.
This camera is stupid. But maybe if I
Put your hand behind it.
yeah, that'll help.
You got some long fingernails.
I know. I need to cut them. I've been. That's what happens when I get into a work mood. Is that like, I mean, look at my fucking beard, my nails, everything. You can tell I get wrapped up. But God, it just does not want to. I'm trying to block like everything else that it could see. Anyway, here, camera, come here. Look at this camera. So I don't have a fancy one where I can like tell it what to do. I need a piece of paper. That's what I need. Here, this will work. There we go. Close enough. But yeah, I don't.
Oh, it was good. I love that the blue, the top blue, or is that green for the cloak?
Yeah, it's Incubi Darkness on the top, and then I'm trying to like make it so that it. Okay, come on, camera, you're almost there. But that's good enough. There we go. But this is probably my favorite, the Glaive Ray Stalkers. It's unfortunate I decided to paint them first because I don't actually use these guys that much.
Oh yeah.
But this is the scheme I'm running with.
Yeah, those guys that can retreat and charge, right?
Yeah, they can retreat and charge. And their gimmick, which they're not the only one that can. That's pretty popular in Night Haunts. But their big thing is that they can, is that they reroll failed to hits when they're charging. And then I've got some Glaive Wraiths, but I'm not going to bother showing them, considering how much effort it is to do that. But I will show. Oh, get in there. This is the only character I've finished at the moment. Which we do that, and then God, I need to shave my beard. I just need to go get like a salon day this week, but let's see if that'll.
Ooh, big locks.
So this is the Spirit Torment, which, come on. It's like I can usually control what's being shown if it's my frickin'. This camera sucks. Like I got it. Oh wait, there we go. There we go. So this is the Spirit Torment with all the nasty.
I like your bases.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, so that's the scheme I've been working on. But right now I'm building and painting my black coach.
Ooh, that's a beautiful model. Brent from Rerolling Ones, he's doing his right now as well.
Yeah, I follow him over on Twitter and saw him working on that. And the thing I don't like about it though is the model is so busy and there's so many internal parts that you kind of have to paint it as you build it. You can't just build it. So like when I went to the tournament this weekend, I didn't even have the Black Coach model on the base. I literally had just his base with a piece of dice on top of it, saying like, "This is where he is, and this is how many power levels he has." Because I don't want to assemble him until I've painted all the internal components.
Yeah, I've been there before. Not at a tournament, but definitely where you're just like,
yeah.
hey.
Granted, it was a local tournament, not a GT.
Yeah, true.
But I guess we can get into that now.
Yeah.
So I went to the. Let's aim the camera more up so it's not looking at my fat body. There we go. So I went to a tournament at a Texas store called Texas Toy Soldier, which is probably one of the coolest tabletop miniatures places around here, and because they just have the sexiest discounts.
There's a place called Mox that's up there. It's hard to go buy normal stuff when you go to. You want to support your local clubs, obviously, but
yeah, I feel that.
If there's one that I can get 20% off all GW products just by going to the store, I'm like, I'll buy some paints and some, like, if you got beers or sodas or whatever, I'll buy that stuff. But I can't.
Yeah.
Get a start collecting box for $100.
When so the Citadel, I try and support the Citadel because they have a really cool store and they sell Forge World stuff, and the guys who work there are they're pretty close to the point where I would consider them friends. They're very chill guys and they're fun to talk to, and I play there usually every Wednesday and Sunday, like just casual games. So they had like a system where they had like membership cards, I guess you could say. They had like achievement systems. So it was like, okay, play in an event and you get a stamp, and then paint a model while at the store, you get a stamp, and complete a unit, so on and so forth. And the hardest one to get is like you have to spend like a certain amount of money that low key adds up to like being roughly $500 over the course of your visits. So over the course of I think the last year, I finally completed it last month, and I was like, all right, I'm never buying anything from you guys again because
I did it.
if I go to Texas Toy Soldier, it's like 20% off, and if I buy from you guys, it's full price. So there, I've supported your store. I completed your goofy little membership card, and they gave me a I got like an exclusive thing that you can roll your dice in that has like snapped edges, so that like when it's all flat, it's easy to take it places, and it's got like really nice red felt on the inside, and then you snap the corners together and it makes a dice tray.
Nice.
So that you can roll dice and they don't fall off your table, which is like the most annoying thing in Warhammer, is when your dice go flying off to God knows where. But anyway, so the tournament was over there, and I was running my Night Haunts, which although I have tweaked it a little bit since then, I put together a pretty nice build that's not super gimmicky, because the thing I actually really took advantage of that I think most Age of Sigmar armies can try and take advantage of, but very few do, is stacking weapons of different reach. Was the concept behind the build. So I basically ran the Chain Guard, which I don't know many Nighthawk players that don't, which is of course you get the two big Chain Rasp hordes with a Guardian of Souls, and whenever he heals one of those units, he resurrects 2d6 models instead of just d6 models. So they're just super difficult to get rid of, because like if one model is still alive, by the time the Nighthawk player's hero phase comes back around, he can basically resurrect the entire unit, as long as he gets the spell off. But anyway, so I had those as my front line, and what I did is I had the two units meet across my army halfway, and they were only one model thick. And because they're on like little 24 millimeter bases, their bases are less than an inch long.
Yep.
So what I would do is I would run them so that they were only one model wide, and then when I got to the flanks, then it was like 3 models wide to protect the flanks. And then behind them, I would run Kurdos Valentian, the Craven King, who's the special character on the big throne.
Yeah, and still the command points, right?
Yeah, which that ability, if it goes off, best character in the game. Very, very rare that it goes off, because it's a 5-up.
I'll just interrupt real quick. When I was playing Stormcast, I was very command point starved, and when I'd see that guy, because I need a command point to shoot my hero phase, and I hate that guy. Dude, maybe it doesn't go off for you. It always went off against me.
Well, that's how it goes, right? Like when you're trying to do it, it never works, but if your opponent's trying to do it, it always works.
Yeah.
And Valentian's, his ability is a little out of date compared to some of the more modern versions. You know, a lot of the modern versions are like, whenever your opponent generates a command point on a 4-up, you stop it, right? But you don't take it. But Valentian instead is at the start of every turn, every Nighthaunt turn, on a 5-up, he steals one. Which is cool, though I will admit I would prefer it if he had a 4-up that would just stop them from getting it instead of stealing it for a 5-up. Because Nighthaunts, you don't really use a lot of command points with Nighthaunts. They don't have a lot of command abilities. But anyway, so I'd park Kurdos Valentian right behind him, and Kurdos hits like a truck. You know, he's got 5 attacks, 3-up, 3-up, which with Nighthaunts you can basically get guaranteed rerolls on a 2-up, 2-up. And he does -2 rend, and then he's D3 wounds normally, but if he rolls to 6 to wound, he does D6 wounds.
Ooh.
But he's got a 1-inch range, so you put him right behind the Chain Rasps, and if anybody charges the Chain Rasp, he can immediately start swinging without being in danger. Because you just keep him like 2 inches back. That way they're within 3, and then he piles in and starts swinging.
Yeah, they can't pile in to get to him, but you can pile in to get to them. That is a great... Yeah, I don't see a lot of people doing that.
So you run him, and then next to him, along the rest of the Chain Rasp line, I would put a unit of 10 Grimgas Reapers, which are the big dudes with the scythes that just hit a lot. They just hit a lot.
Even that Legion and the Gas players like room.
Spam in like groups of 30. Yeah. I was only running 10 of them. And then to Kurdos Valentian, but they have a 2-inch range, so they can get away with a little bit more.
Yeah, and if you have a unit of 5 or more or 10 or more, they get to do.
If they're swinging at someone that has 5 or more models, they reroll all failed hits. But as kind of a counter to that, they do only hit on 4s instead of 3s.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of balances out. And then the last thing I would run that's part of the super build is that to the right of Valentian, I'd run Lady Ollander.
Oh, how did she do for you?
Ollander is amazing.
You know, I've never let her live past turn 1.
Yeah,
I have no idea what she
yeah,
does.
I will say the only game she did not perform for me, which I'll get into, is the game where she got sniped by shooting. Which I will say that is something I do hope going forward they introduce more protections for.
Yeah,
like -1 to shoot is just doesn't matter. Like so. If an army is good at shooting, they're going to be hitting on 2s or 3s. And a -1 at that point is just nothing to them.
That's why I did so well after 2nd edition with Stormcast, because people overcompensated for Lookout Sir is not that great. And if I'm hitting on 2s and with my long strikes, and you have Lookout Sir, okay, now I'm hitting on 3s, which is still fantastic.
Yeah. That being said, like there are ways around it. Like when I was running, I played a practice game before the tournament, and I fought a Bone Reaper player who had the catapult.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, that looks deadly. So I just left Valentian and Ollander, and I left all of my heroes, all of them, except for this one that wasn't super important to the build. I left all my heroes in the underworld until I got close.
Yep.
So I just left them off the table until I was about to charge. Then they came on. But yeah, Ollander is like, she does so many mortal wounds. It is just gross. Because her turn literally goes like this. Start the hero phase. Ollander picks any unit, as long as she can, there's not terrain blocking her line of sight. She can pick any unit within 12 inches. And she picks it, rolls a d6, and does that many mortal wounds. Unless she rolls a 1. If she rolls a 1, nothing happens. But if you roll a 6, boom, 6 mortal wounds.
6 mortal wounds.
And if she kills a model by doing that, she heals herself for d3. Next thing she does is if there's an enemy hero within 6 inches, you can throw your hourglass at him for another d6 mortal wounds.
Is that every turn?
No, that's once per game.
Okay.
And you technically can also use it to heal Ollander for d6 wounds instead, but I have never been in a circumstance where that seemed like it was worth it. Like, I would much rather deal damage than heal damage, because she only has 7 wounds, and she can guarantee heal herself by just, like, lifting her veil at somebody, so, eh. And
I
then...
like her to go up to a 3-up ethereal save.
Say what?
I said I'd like to see her get a 3-up ethereal save.
Yeah, that would make her a lot more viable. Yeah. But then in the shooting phase, plus then she can cast 2 spells and dispel 2 spells, which is great. And her personal spell is the best spell in the Night Haunt book, Grief Stricken, which is you cast it on a unit within 18, and the entire Night Haunt army gets +1 to hit that unit, and that unit gets -1 to hit anything.
That is a really good spell.
With shooting and melee.
What's that cast on?
Cast on a 7?
Okay.
It's either a 6 or a 7. I'm pretty sure it's a 7. But, so, that's solid. And then in the shooting phase, Ollander has the Banshee Scream, but unlike most units where she can only pick one target, Ollander screams at everyone within 10 inches that's an enemy.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
You just go down the line. 2d6, and if you beat their bravery, d3 mortal wounds. If you don't, nothing happens.
That's really good, because you can actually pop up and do that, because a lot of stuff, like if it was a 9-inch range, you couldn't shoot them because you have to pop up more than 9 inches away. So
right. And then in the combat phase, she's surprisingly, she's kind of like most wizards, doesn't have a lot of attacks, but if they do go through, they really hurt.
Yeah.
Because I think she has 3 attacks, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, -2 rend, d3 wounds. And then her and Valentian have their little Spirit Host bodyguard, so they get I think Ollander and Valentian both have 6 bonus attacks that hit and wound on 4s with no rend, but if they roll a 6 to hit, they deal mortals. So
are you gonna start pumping out some Night Haunt lore videos?
Yeah, probably pretty soon. I'm trying to get the community through the basics of Age of Sigmar before we start hitting individual armies.
Yeah.
I think the last video I did was like explaining the Age of Myth. So I still need to do the Age of Chaos and then explain kind of first edition. Then we can start doing, army bases.
Like, yeah, and people like, yeah, I like to like point out you were right to be upset. And people were right. It wasn't like the feelings weren't unwarranted. The game
Oh yeah. I appreciate the people that really want to stick up for Age of Sigmar, but it's like, dude, you gotta understand, when it started, it was rough. Like, it was really rough. Games Workshop did not handle the end of fantasy in the beginning of Age of Sigmar very well. They fumbled that ball hard.
I got a question. You played 8th edition Warhammer, right?
Yeah, I played 6th, 7th, and 8th edition.
Okay. Yeah, I played 6th, and that's when I stopped at 6th. So 4th, 5th, and 6th. Now I've watched battle reports, mini war gamings. They do a lot of stuff. Mountain Ministry games. They do Warhammer battle reports, and like I'm like scratching my head. Like, this is the game everybody's like. It seems like it can be just as one sided as Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, certainly
the dude who's playing high elves, and he was just, I get to fight first. I get to do this. That guy's running away, and then this guy's running away. And I was just like, this also seems like it's a very, very like top tier. This army's top tier. This army's not. Where I think there's a lot of armies in the middle with the Age of Sigmar. I really like that.
I will be as someone, and I played in the Texas Masters religiously in 8th edition, especially. So I played in 7th, but in 8th edition I was very competitive in GTs. And I will be the first to say that 8th edition had a very strict tier list. There were some armies that just were, well, I guess there were some armies that you would say were viable, but they had to take a single build with like maybe some little side things they could change.
Okay.
And that was the only way they were viable. But the top, I want to say the top half of the 16 armies available in Warhammer Fantasy were very competitive. But
I think it was you on I think when we were on 2+F together, were you explaining Swiss?
Yeah, Swiss format was a significant part of that. Because, well, Swiss format came in and made everybody on the same playing field. Which, hold on one second. My dog. One moment.
No problem.
Chloe, what are you doing? Come here. Lay down. What are you doing, Goof?
What's up, the Mogwai man in the chat? He's he's a supporter. Does a lot of Age of Sigmar stuff.
Yeah, I love Mogwai. He comes by Total War streams all the time, too. Sorry, my dog likes to open doors when she wants something. It's unfortunate we have a house where she can do that. Because, it's like, I dominate the upstairs of the home, but there are other people that live here that don't appreciate my shouting at night. But anyway, so, what was it? Oh, yeah. So, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, because I think people in chat are curious about it. But how are Slaves to Darkness, Dom? Very good. Slaves are super good right now.
They just got a new book, and I would see.
And the thing about Slaves to Darkness is they are insanely customizable.
Yes.
Like, you can build to a single god. You can build for all the gods. You can go Undivided. You can go Archaon. You can go character heavy, you can go horde heavy, you can go warriors, you can get marauders, like monsters, like they have a excellent range. I think for anyone that's wanting to get into the game, that's new to it, or someone that wants to run hyper competitive, Slaves to Darkness are a perfect pick.
Yeah, it's like the way I describe Corn. It's as complicated as you want to make it. If you really want to have synergies and need this to go off to do this. Or you can just say, I got a bunch of knights, and they go forward, or warriors, and or I can get marauders that can, I can switch my general every turn and summon marauders every turn with a command point. Mm-hmm. And, there's so many ways to play that army.
Or you can just take a Crack-a-Drac and curb stomp anything that's in the way. But you gonna lay down? Okay, good.
Yeah,
girl.
You get Archaon, Vanguard, Archaon, and like that's one way. If you hate double turns, you can play Archaon, and you get to know who's going to get the next turn. So if you're going to get a double turn,
that's a pretty sexy ability.
You know ahead of time, but if you know you're going to get double turn, you start pulling back. You start, chaffing up some stuff that you want protected. and so that's one option. But then you have to go buy Archeon, which is a beautiful model.
Yeah, it's like $200.
Yeah, exactly. He's pricey
uh,
and he's intimidating to paint.
Dom, would you suggest the start? If there is a start collecting box for a faction you think you want to play, get it.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a single start collecting box I wouldn't recommend if you actually want to play that army. And for the Slaves to Darkness, that's even bigger yes, because those models are exclusive to the box right now.
Yeah, and they're
They're gorgeous.
put together, and I bought it and just like, wow, these are amazing. And they have the Slaves of Darkness have the best endless spell in the game right now, or one of them. For the price, you already know that price is going up GHP, because that gosh, can't remember what it's the thing that's vomiting out magic.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
that is a brutal endless spell.
So, man, talk about tangents. So the tournament.
Oh yeah, yes. Exactly.
So anyway,
where were we at?
yeah. So long story short,
yeah.
So long story short, my Nighthawk build is just Chain Rasp Horde, and then in the center of the bubble is like a character bus. So Hollander, Valentian, Knight of Shrouds on foot for his command ability that gives +1 to hit to everybody in range. Guardian of Souls to give +1 to wound to everyone in range, and a Spirit Torment to let everyone in range reroll ones to hit. So like very character heavy build. And then I had a black coach to give me a strong behemoth that's very maneuverable, and I had 2 units of the Blade Geist Revenants, which are the great sword wielding dudes that are like, just the best. But their models are very expensive, so I only own 10 right now. But so, and they were like my rear line, or I would leave them in the underworld so they could land on an objective. So the first game I fought Tzeentch. But my opponent, I think like yours you said, was like, this was the first time he had played 2nd edition Tzeentch. Like apparently he had played 1st edition Tzeentch, but he hadn't played Tzeentch since 1st edition. Because like he literally, like while we were talking, he got out his War Scroll cards and pulled them out of the plastic, and his Tzeentch dice and pulled them out of the plastic, and his book and pulled it out of the plastic. So like he was familiar with it, but he was definitely new to Tzeentch. And he was kind of like how we were talking earlier. He hates running purely win builds. So he refuses to run change host. Yeah. So he was running I think it's called the Flame Host, Flame something. But it had a ton of flamers in it.
Yeah, that's but not change host. Interesting.
Yeah, so his build was 2 units of pink horrors, a Gaunt Summoner on a disc, a Gaunt Summoner on foot, the Blue Scribes, a Greater Demon, so a Lord of Change, and then like 3 units of Flamers with an Exalted Flamer to give them the bonus to hit. And I think that was everything. But it was still very good.
Yeah. So, like, Sotek is saying, oh, he didn't want to play. He still took a lot of nasty stuff.
Yeah, like it's not like the dirtiest shit build, but it's still pretty. Tzeentch as a whole is just dirty right now. Yeah. But so we're playing Gift from the Heavens. Okay. Which for anyone watching, it's kind of a weird mission because you don't know where the objectives are until turn 2. Because the objectives land on the field. And there's one in each player's territory, essentially. But you don't know where on the table it's going to be. So there was basically like this big terrain piece in the center on my deployment. So I had to pick whether I wanted to go left or right. So I went to the right. And I will say one of the things that Nighthaunts really struggle with is that Nighthaunts have to run their entire army in a 12-inch bubble. Or else the army sucks. Because they're so reliant on character buffs.
Yeah, synergy is huge in an army.
Like yeah, because it's like most Nighthaunt units are like a 4 up to hit, 4 up to wound, 2 attacks with no rend, which is awful. Like that is super bad. But if you run them with all the characters, you're dealing with more like 3 attacks needing 3s to hit rerolling ones with 3s to wound at -1 rend, and you could deal mortals in certain circumstances. Like much nastier build. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so I start going around the right side, and I asked him just flat out. It's like, okay, what is your range like for everything? And he's like, okay, 18 inches. 18 inches is where I can start hurting you. And I was like, okay, so like I measured and I just stayed out of 18 inches for the first 2 turns.
Yep, that was a very good tip for people getting into competitive play. Always ask your opponent their threat range, meaning like with your maximum charge and all that stuff, how far can you get? And
Yeah,
then
and especially because Age of Sigmar has so many rules. Like fantasy, in fantasy, it wasn't expected, but most people in fantasy memorized every single army, like pretty easy.
Mhm.
Age of Sigmar, there's no fucking way. Like there's so many rules in Age of Sigmar, it is
Yeah.
insane.
That's what
Granted, you
the
don't
Azir
need.
app's really nice. You can look it up. Like, okay,
Yeah, it's like granted, you don't use most of them in a typical build. Like every army book has a absurd amount of rules because every unit has a unique rule to it, or two or three.
hmm
So like that's why you can't ever expect to memorize it, like because you don't know what kind of synergies your opponent is running. That's why you gotta ask. But anyway, but he was very nice and straightforward about it. And so I stayed out at 18 inches, and I got super lucky because turn two, because I went first, and turn two I won priority, and I chose to go first again, or no, I let him go first because I wanted to try and get a double turn,
hmm
and both meteors landed. I got really lucky because they both landed on the right side,
yeah,
so they're both right across from each other, and my army's already parked on top of the one in my deployment zone. Um, and so he goes and puts a unit of horrors on top of his objective. Now, the reason that most people really hate Zinch right now, for those watching in chat, and we'll get into talking just about Zinch in a little bit, is that horrors, a unit of 10 horrors, technically has 50 wounds.
yeah.
Because every time you kill one, they split into two blue horrors, and every time you kill a blue horror, it turns into a brimstone horror, which
No,
is.
no, it's 30 because pink goes into one blue, and then blue into brimstone.
Are you sure? Because his was splitting into two blues.
I think he might have got you on that one.
Ah, well, it didn't matter. It didn't save him. But so in our build, he went from pink to two blues, and then one blue to one brim.
Let me
But
look that up. While you're talking, keep on, keep going. I'm
sure.
gonna look this up.
So already, and of course, he's building up fate dice like nobody's business. Like I will say, one thing I really think they need to fix about Zinch is that if they're gonna have an ability where they get points for casting a spell, then they should not be allowed to cast a spell unless it has a viable target.
Yes, I agree with
Like
you
that is
wholeheartedly.
such bullshit. Where they're just like, oh, arcane bolt, and it's like nothing's within 18. He's like, yeah, I know, I just want the fate point. It's like
Oh,
what?
yeah,
Like you should not be legally allowed to cast a spell unless it has an actual target.
agreed.
So he's just, he's building up fate points like nobody's business, and I'm stopping what I can, but I only have 4 dispels. It is 2 blues. Okay, thanks, Mogwai.
Oh
But
yeah, I was wrong. I was wrong.
yeah, but anyway, it's gross. So, but this is where the good part happens. So my turn comes around, and he's trying to move his army into position, and I'm like, all right, it's go time. So I charge my chain rasps, my scythe boys, and Valentian into the horrors. But the chain rasps roll a 10 to charge, and I'm like, oh shit.
Oh yeah.
Because Night Haunts, if you roll a natural 10 or higher, they get to fight in the charge phase and in the combat phase. So Chain Rasps swarm in, just thwack a ton of them, right? Because Chain Rasps, they have no rend, but they put out a ton of damage. Because it's two attacks per guy, and they're the only Night Haunt unit that can reroll ones to hit and to wound. So it's actually very, very reliable to give Chain Rasps 3s to hit, rerolling ones, 3s to wound, rerolling ones, with 2 attacks per model, which is just an assload of attacks. And since their base is less than an inch, they fight in 2 ranks. So they can just, devastate units.
They're
So
low key really good because they're like your smallest guys. They're not very intimidating, but if they pack a hard punch, if there's a big
yeah,
block,
just the dice output is just insane. But then the real kicker was I rolled the charge for my 10 Grimghast Reapers, and they got an 11.
no,
So they came around the back of the horrors, and the horrors were dead before my combat phase even started. Like they just got butchered because I had moved so carefully that I was completely in range with all my buff guys. So my guys just went whoosh and just wiped out that entire unit in a single go, which is very unusual.
yeah, yeah.
and it's scary finding Zinch because Zinch has some nasty shit up their sleeves where they can, they literally have a spell where if they've got like a couple of blue horrors left or a couple of brimstone horrors left, they can kill their own unit, and on a 4-up, they bring back those 10 pink horrors, which is just bull. But they could do stuff like that. So I kill the unit, and now I'm sitting on the objective, and literally my largest models are parked on this objective, or my largest units. So like he needs to like really pull something cool off to get it away from me. So his turn comes back around, and I was feeling pretty good at this point. Like I had killed a bunch of blue horrors. I was about to start sniping his characters with Lady Allender. Well, then his turn happened. And during his turn, his 3 units of flamers walk up, and he's like, I'm going to shoot everything at Allender. Jesus Christ. So much shooting. Like, even with the -1 to hit me for Lookout Sir, and me having a 4-up unrendable save, and the death shrug of 6-up, granted, he did just enough wounds to kill me. But it was like a vomit of shooting attacks. Like, I want to say it was like 60 attacks or something just insane like that.
Wow.
Because, he was rolling each unit one at a time, but there were just so many. It was just like, oh my god. Like, if I had Clairvoyance and Mystic shielded her the turn before, then she probably would have survived. But even then, it would have been hard. Just the sheer volume of dice at that point.
She has 8 wounds or 9?
7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, her Valentian and Allender only have 7 wounds. So anyway, Allender just dies. Didn't even get to use her, which was like, that's kind of a bummer. Whatever, she did her job. So at that point, it just turned into a slog of him trying to get me off the objective. But if there's one thing Nighthaunts are good at, it's not dying. They are very, very resistant. Like he even used his fate points. Like he used both Gaunt Summoners to summon another unit of 10 horrors. So originally there were 20 horrors on the battlefield. I killed one. Then all of a sudden 20 more show up. Because the Gaunt Summoners can summon a unit of pink horrors for free.
For free.
Which is bull. And then using his fate points, he summoned another unit from the flank onto the battlefield. Because he flew his Gaunt Summoner like, 20 odd inches or whatever. Over my army to get behind me and summon another unit on. But luckily, I just had all of my Chain Rasp packed on that objective, along with the Grimghast Reapers and Valentian. And Valentian is awesome for killing hordes, just because a model that does D3 wounds on every hit with reliable 5 attacks is pretty good. And the Black Coach was just wreaking havoc on the... I killed the Blue Scribes with the Black Coach. Because I think he kind of underestimated how fast it could move. Because the Black Coach can normally only move 14. But if you're running Nighthaunts, then if you respect yourself, you're going to be running the Fell Pendant, which gives you another 3 inches to any model that starts its move within range of the character. And then a Black Coach, once it's power level 2, can run in charge. So if you command point to 6, then then your Black Coach can move 23 inches. And still charge. So you just turn characters into speed bumps.
That's awesome.
But anyway,
and Olander didn't get to do anything, but she took a whole round of shooting.
Yeah, she ate the entire round of shooting, and by that point, I was so far ahead in objective score that he just couldn't catch me.
That is a good win.
So caught a win there. Then we went to lunch. Second game, I fought a guy from my local store who, to put it nicely, is not necessarily my favorite person. Just because he has a very competitive outset. And, that's all he cares about. But he kind of, what's the word? He almost kind of gaslights. He kind of does gaslighting, where it's like, he's like, oh, my build's super memey, or like, my build's not that good, and then he just takes the dirtiest shit in the universe.
Oh yeah.
Which makes me just like, like, if you just owned up to the fact that you're playing dirty. But so the second game was shifting objectives, which shifting objectives can go roll in a ditch and die. Hey Hugh, how's it going, Hugh? Hugh says hello, Jack.
Hey, how's it going?
I think he pops by y'all's thing pretty
Oh
often.
yeah, totally. I know Hugh.
So the second game, I actually saw his list, and he did not give a very sportsmanlike warning of how his list worked, or else I would have deployed very differently. Because he's like, okay, my army can move really fast. I'm like, okay, how fast is very fast? And he kept being really vague about it. Um, and
I've
he,
had that happen before.
yeah,
Like, how
and
many
he was
jobs?
like, he
Oh,
was
I have.
like, oh well, depending on dice, if I'm lucky, he's like, like maybe 18 inches, and I'm like, okay, that's really fast, but okay, I can deal with that. So I deployed all the way back in my deployment zone, but I still deployed in the middle. So I deployed in the middle with my box, but I was all the way in the back, like I was against the back edge of the table, right? He's playing Iron Suns, Iron Jaws,
Oh
with
yeah.
a pure pig build.
Oh yeah, he's really fast.
Yeah, so two units of 9 pigs, 1 unit of 3 pigs, a Maw Crusher running the Ether Quartz pendant, and 2 War Chantas. That's the entire build.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, with me at the very edge of the table, there is a small chance he'll make it to me. No, sir! No, sir! He proceeds to easily move his entire army 24 inches.
Okay, so the pig should move 18.
Right, well, so with the Ether Quartz pendant, right, he's getting back command points.
Yeah.
And he has a command ability that he can spam where he gives movement during the hero phase.
Yeah, that's Mighty Destroyers.
Yeah, so he spams that to move his army up.
Yep.
And then during the movement phase, he runs them as fast as he can. Plus some kind of buff from a War Chanter or something. And and so he's like right on top of me.
Yep.
And then he
bashing after that.
Yeah, and then he rolls his charges. So he charged his entire army, and he only had 3 drops. So his likelihood of going first, or no, I think he only had 2 drops, but 2 or 3. But his likelihood of going first was like basically guaranteed.
Yep.
And that's the whole point of his army. He goes first, kills you before you have a chance to do anything. Which I will publicly say, like, I don't even give a fuck if he tunes into this. That is a bullshit build. And anyone who runs that should be ashamed of themselves. Like, it's one thing to run a dirty build. It's another thing to run a build that your opponent does not get a physical chance to do anything.
Yeah. But like with that one, it's one of those things where when you lose, you learn. Like
that's true.
Like
but the story actually does get better though for this fight. So you wanted to ask me how Allender is? Allow me to tell you. So he charges in, but I had bubbled myself appropriately. You know, my Black Coach was on a flank, so the Maw Crusher charges the Black Coach and instantly kills it, because Maw Crushers hit like absolute gods.
Yep.
Because, you know, they're totally fair and balanced. And then the Iron Jaw, or the piggies kill both of my Chain Rasp units. Or no, they wiped out one of them, and the other one they got pretty low. Yep. But all my characters were still alive, hiding in the back. And I still had my units of Blade Geist Revenants chilling out. Thanks to oh my gosh, Rolana and Dosic, thanks for being members here on the channel, guys, for 2 years.
Wow.
24 months. My God. I do not feel like I've been streaming that long. Ugh, that makes me feel old. Thanks for your continued support, guys. But so my hero phase comes around, and I'm looking at this kind of like, I've already lost this game. Like I was sitting there just like, I cannot see a possibility for me winning this, especially because the objective is way over on the left for shifting objectives, and he's already parked 5 pigs on top of it. And sure, I have 10 Blade Geist Revenants in the Underworld, but 10 Blade Geist Revenants, especially because they're 2 separate units of 5, so he would get to swing between them. The odds of me being able to kill those 3 pigs with 10 guys is very low. Just because those pigs are scary. And of course, you know, when he charged me, he did the whole bullshit of like, he killed the Black Coach, then his next unit gets to swing immediately. And then he killed the unit, so then he gets to swing immediately. All that crap. But, yeah, so so all that crap happens, and I'm like, okay. But now I'm mad. So Allender turns to the Maw Crusher and I try lifting my veil and throwing an hourglass at him, and I roll a 1 on both.
Oh no!
So her glare does 0 damage, and the hourglass I can use once per game does 1 damage. But then Valentian goes in on him, and then during the hero phase, the real treat happened. I dropped a at least he didn't run Big Wall and then get 2 up to hit and wound. He did have 2 up to hit and wound. Well, on his pigs. Which was basically his entire army. So so Lady Allender, during the hero phase, I had the Horrorghast endless spell.
Oh, that's the
-2 leadership.
Yeah.
So I drop it on top of the pigs, and my shooting phase comes around, and Allender screams and does basically kills a model on both pig units and screams at the Maw Crusher, dealing 3 mortal wounds. And then my combat phase comes around. Valentian turns to the Maw Crusher and just goes pop, and it just dies. Like Valentian just flattens it. Because he didn't have any kind of feel no pain save. He didn't have like any bonus save, and at that -2, Valentian just does like 12 wounds easily when he gets a D6 through. So the Maw Crusher dies, and then all of my characters pile into the pigs and just start swinging. And I killed 2 pigs from each unit, but then we get to bravery check. He doesn't have a character around to babysit them and make them immune to battle shock. And then they're at -2 bravery for the Horrorghast, minus another 1 for being within 6 inches of Night Haunts, and then minus like another 2 for the models they lost. So they're at -5, and they're Iron Jaws, which means they're like bravery 6. So he rolls, and off both units, like he loses 3 models. So that's like 30 wounds instantly gone.
That's awesome.
So by the time we end the game, he got really, really lucky with every time we rolled for the shifting objective, it always was a 3. So the one his unit was parked on, it was that one every single time.
That's brutal.
But I did get the satisfaction of I completely tabled him. Like, Lady Allender single-handedly kills his entire army. He managed to kill Valentian before the pigs went down, but Allender, because she heals herself every time she lifts her veil at somebody, and I have another character, the Guardian of Souls. I was running Spectral Tether as his spell, which heals D3 wounds to Night Haunt heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Spirit Torment is like my favorite Night Haunt character, because the Spirit Torment has a passive where if I kill 4 models before the Battle Shock phase, and either player's turn, then he heals D3 wounds to a Night Haunt anything within 6 inches. And if like they're missing models, he can bring back models as long as he does enough wounds to bring back the model. So like the Spirit Torment, the Guardian of Souls, and Lady Allender are just buffing the crap out of Allender, keeping her at full wounds. He would do 4 wounds to her, she'd heal back to full. He'd do another 3, she'd heal back to full. Just over and over and over. So finally, killed everything, but he was so far ahead that he got a major victory. But God, I did not like that build. But if I ever see it again in the future, I have no problem knowing that I can beat it, no problem.
Yep.
Because if I had just deployed in the corner, like if I had just turtled in the corner and done 2 waves of Chain Rasp, whatever.
Yep. Didn't got to you.
Yeah, it's like, whatever, fine. Which I wouldn't have thought to do that normally, because to me that's like, that's a way to deploy. But I looked at his build, it's like, fuck that. If you're going to play with that kind of build, then fine. Fair is fair, dude. But, and then my last game was against a Gloomspite Gitz player. And God have mercy on that poor man. He was a sweet, nice gentleman, but his dice were ass. like the moon left the table on turn 2. Like it started in the corner and then it like rolled, so it went like backwards and just vanished off the table. And then we were playing a really weird battle plan. God, it's a Relocation Orb. Have you ever played that one?
Yes.
Yeah, that one is like super wonky. Because you don't know, you have no idea where it's gonna go. And it can go some wild places. Because they're like, for anyone that hasn't played it, there's like a whole chart based on a dice roll about where it moves to. Then in addition to that, characters who have items or wizards count as 20 models if they're within 3 inches of it, which is very different. And then the last thing that actually makes this one really hard for some, like basically unwinnable for some armies, is that if you go first in that turn and take the objective, you get 1 victory point. If you go second in that turn and take the objective, you get 3 victory points.
Which is nice because it does, like going back to what we were talking about earlier, double turns. It does gives you the incentive not to take a double turn.
Yeah, because
like, okay, you can table somebody, but just like you tabled somebody, you can still, it's an objective game.
Yeah, but it is an objective where if you're not good at winning priority rolls, just through sheer luck, you have to table your opponent pretty much. Or at least be very good at dealing damage. Because if they manage to get that objective back every turn and you always go first, you're boned by turn 4.
Yep.
Just because you'll fall behind. But this Gloom Spike player, the relocation orb, every time it moved, it just landed on a different part of my army.
Oh, that's brutal.
And like he did a lot of cool things. Like he hand-gorked one of his goblin units to my side so he could throw fanatics. They completely whiffed. It was like 5 fanatics, 5d6, and he got like 1-1-2-1-1.
Oh no.
And like the whole point of fanatics is that they have -2 rend, so like they're really cool. But against Nighthawks, we're like, that doesn't really matter. I mean, cool, I guess. But so like his army just did not work. And like he brings in the Mangler Squid character who had the item or ability so that he could hit my army, and then he swings, then he runs away, right? Yep. But when he rolls to run away, he only runs 4 inches. So at the start of my turn, Allender just lifts her veil at him and he dies.
Oh, man.
It's like, I felt so bad.
That's what I love about like tabletop games, where you have these little stories. Like you'll always remember that. Remember the time the Mangler Squid only ran 4 inches?
Yeah, and you know, when me and him were talking about, like, he was a super nice guy, and I had a ton of fun talking to him. He's like, you know, I always loved playing goblins. He's like, because although it's really frustrating this game, he goes, the thing I love about them is I never know how they're gonna do.
Yeah,
it's like sometimes they're just hot and they're just like destroying everything. Like the moon lands in the center of the table and it stays in the center of the table, and the army's just like curb stomping everything. And he's like, and the fanatics just rip through everything. He's like, and then sometimes I have these games. Yeah. But so I ended up due to, I guess, alphabetical order, I placed 5th, but I tied in points for 4th. Because there's only 3 games, so there's a lot of tying for various spots. But the overall placement of our tournament was really interesting. The first place was actually the first. Turns out one of the guys at the tourney was the first place in 2019's Texas Masters. So he's like the best player in the state as of 2019 at least. And he was running, his build was interesting. He was running a Blades of Corn army, but was almost purely using Slaves to Darkness models. So he was actually running Slaves to Darkness, but he ran them as Blades of Corn for like all the buffs and stuff. And he was, I didn't quite catch what his build was, but I know it was very centric on, it had like really powerful character buffs, a really scary Crackerdrack Lord who apparently just curb stomped everything he touched, and 2 Chaos War Shrines that apparently were just like buffing everything.
Yeah, and they also have the priest keyword, so they get the corn prayers.
Yeah, so he was just like, apparently he just manhandled everybody he fought.
Interesting.
Because one of the players from the Citadel, because there were 3 players, myself included, that came from the Citadel that were playing, which was funny because the Dallas area community are technically called the Defenders of the Citadel, even though a lot of them only play at Texas Toy Soldier and not the Citadel itself. But anyway, so but he ended up playing one of the guys I knew who was running a really nasty Petrifex elite army. You know, like I forget what his name is, but his goal with his Petrifex was to run the nastiest, most competitive build possible. So he wasn't just running Petrifex; he wanted like cannot lose Petrifex. You know, and his army was essentially like a shitload of Mortek Guard. Some of the casters that can like regenerate, so like the guy on the Palanquin
Yeah.
Palanquin, however you say it, the Bone Shaper, and then the Cavalos Rider. And then he had a Mortek Crawler so he could snipe characters. And that was basically his whole build, was that he would like sit on objectives on his side, have the Mortek Crawler shoot people, which the Mortek Crawler can get a buff so that it cancels out Lookout Sir, so it hits on 2s, and rerolls 1s.
Yeah, no ring, but it's 5 damage each.
Yeah, but when he fought the Corn player, Corn just did not care, and just ran him over, like just beat the tar out of him.
Interesting. I wonder what the guy's listed. That's really cool.
And then our second place player, I want to say was, our second place was Flesh Eater Quartz, running the Terrakais build with Maw something.
Gristlegore?
Yeah, Grizzlegore. So he was running the double Terrorgeist with
What
a
did
bunch of sporting
the
rules.
Avondale player end up?
The who?
The jerk.
He ended up below me. he got 8th because in our tournament, you got 30 points for a major win, 20 points for a minor win, 10 points for a minor loss, and no points for major loss. So I got, but in the very last game, only the last game, there was a bonus objective, and so our tournament was called the Hunt for Harambe.
Oh my gosh!
And every match there was like a monkey themed thing to it. So like the first one, the gift from the heavens wasn't a comet; it was like a crate of bananas. So if you owned the banana crate at the end of the game, like each objective was a crate of bananas, and whoever owned it got to take it with them into the second game. And then if you owned it in the second game, there was a monkey who was the shifting objective, and if you got too close to him and you did not have any bananas, I am reading this verbatim, he would throw his shit at you, which would do a mortal wound every turn unless you had bananas. And then in the last game, everybody got the monkey as a hero, in addition to your build, who counted as a hero for the sake of taking objectives for relocation orb, but he had a really, really bad war scroll unless he had bananas. If you gave him bananas, then he had a 4-up save that was unrendable, but he only had like 4 wounds, and he had a shooting attack of 12 inches where he would fling shit, and it would do like -1 rend D3 wounds. But the way you got the bonus objective points is if you killed your opponent's monkey, but your monkey was still alive, then you got +5 points. And very, very few people pulled that off. Most people, either both of them killed the monkey or nobody killed a monkey. So, but my game, like I said, I felt so bad for the Gloomspite player. I rolled really well and he rolled really bad. And so he ended up just full out surrendering by turn 3. So the monkey counted as being dead. But it wouldn't have mattered much because the monkey was in range of Allender. So Allender was just like sniping him with her lifting of the veil. So with that, I got the bonus 5 points, which put me at 65 points instead of only 60, which is what kicked me up to 4th place instead of being like tied for 6th or 7th.
That's awesome. How often do you guys have tournaments down there?
Right now, just for the Defenders of the Citadel, I want to say we're at. So they've already scheduled this year's tournaments, and the next one is March 28th. It looks like there's about one every month.
Okay.
So the next one is March 28th. Then the Lone Star Grand Tournament, so the first GT for our area, is May 2nd. And then there's another tournament May 23rd, June 27th. Then there is a GT in, I think, Houston on the 18th of July, and then it just kind of keeps going.
Okay. Are you near, is it Galveston, Texas?
Oh, Lord, no. I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Because there's a thing I might go to. It's the Warhammer Cruise. And
Warhammer Cruise?
Yeah, it leaves out of Galveston, Texas, and it goes to like Mexico, Jamaica, and so you play Warhammer while you're on the cruise, and then you land, and then you go do all the touristy stuff. Dude out of Vancouver, Canada, does it every year, and it's I'm thinking about giving it a shot.
Oh my
It's got
gosh, that
reasonable price.
sounds amazing. And like, it sounds expensive, but it sounds
Yeah.
also very cool.
It's like it's not that it's I mean it's a cruise, but like when I heard it, I was like, oh, that's not that bad. But it's like one way, like if you have a girlfriend or a wife or a significant other, like, hey, come on, honey, you know.
You can enjoy all the other things that this boat
Yeah, yeah.
does.
So anyway, sir, I'm gonna have to turn it down here. I gotta go finish some stuff today. But thank you for having me on. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, it was a pleasure having you by. There's plenty more to talk about another time,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
if y'all want to see more stuff about this, or God, my throat. If y'all want to see more kind of content like this in the future, let me know. I know most people are going to be catching this later, just because we started a little late today.
Mhm.
So those of you in Europe are probably still sleeping. But thanks so much, everybody, for watching. We'll be back on. I mean, we're going to be doing some other stuff soon, unrelated to AOS, but we're going to be having 2 Plus Tough on Friday.
Oh, that's my dog.
And then maybe we can get the rerolling guys back here after that in the near future.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we can do a sketch.
yeah, thanks everybody so much for watching. Appreciate all the messages, folks, and y'all have a great day. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.